of FanSided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher as we wrap up the wild card weekend. Marcus, we're looking forward to the divisional round. We've got games to talk about, playoff football, and huge head coaching news around the NFL. Marcus, Mike Tomlin has stepped down as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. When I say that with air quotations, if you're listening on the podcast version right now, because I guarantee you this was a mutual parting, this decision between the Steelers and Tomlin. He is not going to coach the Pittsburgh Steelers after nearly 2 decades of doing so. 19-year NFL head coach. That's our big news for today. We're going to talk about playoff results. Drake Maye versus Caleb Williams. Who's going to be more likely to win the Super Bowl first? Can Houston's defense carry them to the Super Bowl after what we witnessed in the wild card round against Pittsburgh? Can we trust Sam Darnold? We got all of that on the dock today. And if you are a fan of football, make sure you're checking out fansided.com every single day for all your daily sports news and opinions. You can find Marcus's awesome work over there. Marcus, let's start though with the Mike Tomlin news. Don't want to bury the lead here. This is huge. And as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Marcus, I felt like this was a long time coming. And if you ask me, honestly, probably 6 or 7 years overdue. And maybe the right time for departure would have been, Marcus, when Ben Roethlisberger retired. You could have kind of went out together. You obviously wouldn't have had kind of as ugly as a stamp as you had on the rest of your career had you left at that time. And now what everybody's going to point to, Marcus, is the fact that Tomlin is a really good head coach overall. It's had a terrific history, a record of 193, 114 and 2. His regular season wins tied the great Chuck Noll. All of that's great. Never had a losing season in 19 years, but the Steelers, with the wild card loss to the Texans, are now on a 9-year drought without a playoff win. Marcus, was it time for Mike Tomlin to go?
Yeah, and I think it was time for the Pittsburgh Steelers to move on. And honestly, I think this is going to be good for Mike Tomlin long term. When you're with a franchise for 2 decades, things tend to get stale, and that's true for a lot of these coaches. Whether it was John Harbaugh in Baltimore, Andy Reid in Philadelphia before he left for Kansas City, Pete Carroll in Seattle. Sometimes a breakup is good for both sides, and Tommy, it just felt like this was the same thing happening over and over. This is 3 straight years that the Steelers were 10-7, that they were blown out in the wild card game. They don't really have a path toward dramatically improving this team. And I think it was time for Tomlin to try something else. Now, whether that's taking a year off and going back into coaching or going to TV or whatever he does, I think he needed some time to reset and recharge the batteries. And I think for Pittsburgh, they needed a new voice. I mean, when you have somebody for 2 decades, it's easy to see that voice getting stale or the message not getting through to the players. I think in the long run, this is good for both sides, but it is a little surprising to see it happen now.
It really is. And I think just because of the longevity of the situation, how good he is, the fact that he's going to be future Hall of Fame head coach someday, all those compound together to make us think that, all right, it finally happened. I wasn't shocked by it, but still there is a shock factor to it. The fact that it's finally gone, because Marcus, for fans that are NFL fans that are 25, 28 years old, like they don't remember life before Mike Tomlin. And even if they're not a fan of the Steelers, this was the longest tenured active head coach in the NFL. He was reaching that status of that very few coaches ever reach. I mean, he passed Bill Cowher by 40 years, Marcus, in terms of longevity with an organization. And so it's interesting to see this finally come to a close.
I've got a couple questions for you. Number one, Mike Tomlin, after the game against Houston on Monday night, he was talking about how he doesn't think about the long term or anything like that. He was just only focused on this game. And then 12 hours later, he resigns from the Steelers. Are you surprised it happened that fast? Because to me, I thought if Tomlin was going to move on, he was going to take a couple weeks to, meet with all the players and had to, discuss his options. The fact that it happened so fast after the season ended either tells me that the Rooneys really wanted to move on quickly so they can get into the coaching cycle. And again, I know Mike Tomlin stepped down, but we know that sometimes they say it's a mutual parting, and maybe it really was, but maybe the Rooneys pushed him. Hey, if you're gonna leave, do it now so we can get a start. Or do you think this was really Tomlin? He heard the fire Tomlin chants at the end of the game. The fourth quarter went so poorly that he just wanted to kind of remove himself as fast as possible.
Yeah, I've heard both things. Honestly, I've heard that the Rooneys were willing to give Tomlin that extra year, and who knows about even that 2027 option that's due on March 1st. But I also 100% can see it from the other side. The pressure was on. You're on already an 8-year drought without a playoff win. You tried to avoid 9. It didn't happen. I mean, you're pushing a decade without postseason success. No coach has ever had that. Mike Tomlin has now tied Marvin Lewis with the longest streak of consecutive playoff losses, I believe, with 7 in a row. And so not an area where you want to be. I think there was a ton of pressure by Art Rooney too and the organization to make this move. But I also think that Tomlin probably knew that he had kind of overstayed his welcome in Pittsburgh. I mean, when you're out there hearing fire Mike Tomlin chants as the game is winding down, and it's hardly the first time this has happened, I think that he knew that it was time finally for a change of scenery, and the message gets stale, I think, after a while as well.
And I want to ask you this next part of the question, because there are a lot of people on Twitter that or wherever on social media that believe the reason why they haven't had playoff success over the last decade isn't because of Tomlin. It's because they don't have a quarterback, right? They've had to cycle through a bunch of quarterbacks: Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Trubisky, Kenny Pickett. And if you give him a Josh Allen, well, of course he's going to win a bunch of playoff games. So what is kind of the response to that of, hey, he doesn't have a quarterback, so he can't take too much of the postseason blame?
Yeah, I think that there's a relatively easy answer to that. Mike Tomlin has had a heavy hand in deciding who the quarterback has been since Ben Roethlisberger. He brought in Mitch Trubisky. He brought in Russell Wilson. I mean, that was a Tomlin decision. You can say, well, Tomlin's not the GM. He kind of is in a way, because he has ultimate power, more power than any head coach since since Bill Belichick left the New England Patriots. Tomlin has been the head guy, the head honcho over his organization, more so than any head coach in the league. He has that hiring power, and you can see it in the moves that he makes. He goes out and gets guys that he had previous draft crushes on. That's what he does. So the fact that he was going out and getting these stopgap quarterbacks, he had and when the strike that the Steelers did take, Marcus, when they actually threw a dart at a quarterback, it was on Kenny Pickett, a local guy who, quite frankly, did not deserve to go in the first round, didn't deserve to go in the first few rounds of the NFL draft. So Tomlin's hand has been heavily in the front office side of things. And so if we're going to give the Tomlin the credit he deserves for coaching and getting this team to a 500 or better record with the quarterback play, we also need to give him the blame when it comes to what you did at the quarterback position. The Steelers have to find a franchise quarterback. There's absolutely no question about that. But at the same time, Tomlin was willing to go year to year to year with zero regard for the future in mind when he made these quarterback decisions. Marcus, this brings me to the next point here. And after the dust settles and the shock and awe of the Tomlin decision is done, we look at it from two sides of the coins here. The first is the side of the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do they do next? Where do they go from here? We can look at their history when it comes to the drafting hiring head coaches. And the other side, Marcus, is how marketable is Mike Tomlin, and what does him stepping down mean? Because the Steelers did not officially fire him. Tomlin is still technically under contract for as much as 2 years with that ability to pick up that 2027 option. Do the Steelers trade Tomlin? Marcus, where do you want to start here?
Well, let's start with Tomlin. We got a report right before we jumped on the show that a couple teams have reached out to Mike Tomlin, and he's told them that he's not interested in coaching this year. And honestly, I don't blame him. I think it would really benefit Tomlin from taking a year off, again, recharging the batteries, looking at some different schemes, looking at some different coaching staffs, and trying to maybe improve and advance a little bit. This is what Sean Payton did when he left the Saints to go to the Broncos. Mike Vrabel did this after he left the Titans. I do think this is ultimately the right decision for him. He's going to have job offers available to him in 2027, 2028. He doesn't need to worry about that. I'm more fascinated by Pittsburgh. What do the Steelers? I think the Steelers are going to hire someone young. I don't see them going after an older retread coach like a John Harbaugh or Mike McCarthy, because that's just not really what they do. And again, I know it's a small sample size here, but they generally hire younger coaches. And I think we've heard Art Rooney talk about how much respect he has for, like the Sean McVay tree. I wouldn't be surprised if it's someone like Chris Shula, who is the current defensive coordinator of the Rams, who's got a big family name. I wouldn't be surprised if they hire like the passing game coordinator with the Rams right now. It's Nathan Scalihasi, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I know that's somebody that's been mentioned a little bit. I think they're going to go young, and I would not be surprised if it's on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Marcus, I've got an article actually coming out tomorrow morning on stillcurtain.com. You can go check it out. But there are two factors here that the Steelers are almost guaranteed to look at when it comes to hiring a head coach, at least based on history. And if we look back, the last four head coaches, Marcus, of the Pittsburgh Steelers in their ages, Mike Tomlin was 34 years old when he was hired as Steelers head coach. Bill Cowher, 34 years old. Chuck Noll, back in 1969, 37 years old. And even before that, even before the merger in 1966, Bill Austin was 37 years old. Now, Bill Austin didn't work out, only stayed there for a 3-year span. But since the merger, the Steelers have had 3 head coaches, a stat that everybody knows at this point. All 3 of those guys were 37 or younger, and all 3 of those guys were defensive-minded head coaches. And I think that those are the 2 factors the Steelers are going to look for. Now, do they have to be 34? No, I don't think that there's not enough candidates out there to even select from at that point. But you mentioned Chris Shula. I mean, we're talking about a guy who I believe is 39 years old and a defensive-minded coach. He fits the bill of what the Steelers are looking for. And so you nailed it when you said that, Marcus. The Steelers, and again, this goes back to what we know, everything we know about Art Rooney II and the Rooney family. What has brought them all of these, the Super Bowl and postseason success over the years? It's been hiring young defensive minds who can bring that physical mindset and mentality to the organization. I would be shocked if they strayed from that.
I don't think they will. I think that's what you're going to end up seeing here in Pittsburgh.
All right, let's talk about it from the other side really quick before we move on, Marcus. Mike Tomlin is obviously an incredibly marketable coach. Whether you think that he's past his coaching prime or not, there will be teams who are guaranteed to have interest in Mike Tomlin. But obviously, we can agree that what's best for him and what he's likely to do this year is to take that year off of coaching, maybe go into broadcasting, maybe just go into film study like Sean Payton did for a year. A couple of things here. Will the Steelers ultimately get compensation for a Mike Tomlin trade? And do you think this is the best course of action? Just to kind of sit here,
yes,
weigh his options. And then, Marcus, a third question, what could potentially be some head coaching availability down the line? Because right now there's 8 jobs open. Obviously, he's not going back to Pittsburgh. There's 7 jobs open for Mike Tomlin. He could probably have his pick of the litter. Is he going to be better off waiting a year?
Yes. And here's the reason why. Here's how I would do it if I was Mike Tomlin, okay? If I was trying to figure out the best spot for him, I would be like, okay, let's rank the top 10 quarterbacks, okay? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I want to get one of those guys. Put me in a situation where I have one of those and I'll fix the defense. And maybe Andy Reid retires after next year. Maybe the Bills move on from Sean McDermott. Right. Or, maybe I'm just making up, maybe Lamar Jackson's available. I just don't see him going to Baltimore. Right. I think if you're Mike Tomlin, that's the number one thing. Take a job where you have an established franchise quarterback. It's what Mike Vrabel did, right? Drake Maye was only in his second year this year, but he knew that he had the quarterback in place. I think Mike Tomlin's going to be very picky about the next spot. And I would be shocked if he goes somewhere where they don't already have an established quarterback, because I don't think he wants to tread in the waters again of having to cycle through Russell Wilsons and Mitch Trubisky's and Aaron Rodgers just to be competitive.
Yeah, and he should be. I mean, he's got the reputation to be, and he's marketable enough to be picky with his selection. He can go and make a lot of money for Fox or whatever if he wants to do it that this year, take a year off, and then weigh his options next year. 100% agree, Marcus. That's the course of action that Tomlin should take. Take that year off. Look for the best quarterback situation, because if you've got your quarterback in place, everything else is going to go smoother after that.
One more thing. If I'm Mike Tomlin, one of my requirements is I want to go somewhere where it's warm. I've been in Pittsburgh the last 20 years. Put me in one of these southern
Yes.
franchises where I don't have to dress in hoodies every single day. So I think Mike Tomlin's going to be picky. I think he will eventually get a job. I just won't be surprised if it's not this year or next year. I think he's going to be patient here.
Yeah, and I think he can absolutely afford to be. No reason to rush into any brash decisions here if you are Tomlin, but definitely going to make for an incredibly interesting offseason for Steelers fans, for football fans in general. So many coaching changes around the league. We've talked about John Harbaugh and kind of having his pick, and maybe he'll make a decision here soon, meeting with the New York Giants as we record this show. Marcus, let's go and talk about the results around the NFL in Wild Card Weekend. I can't say that I'm overly shocked by anything that happened in these games, but there were some really interesting contests. I mean, you look at start kicking things off, the Panthers making it a 31-34 game against the LA Rams. Now, Panthers were at home, but the fact that they were able to keep this competitive, and maybe if not for a drop pass late in the game, Marcus, they would have had a chance to send that thing to overtime. The 49ers upsetting the Eagles, the Bears taking care of business late in the game in a comeback victory against the Packers. That's on the NFC side. And the AFC side, Steelers got their butts whooped against the Houston Texans in a 30-6 shutout and shootout performance. And I think that's might have been the final nail in the coffin, Marcus. Who knows if the Steelers had kept that within a field goal? Maybe the conversations with Mike Tomlin would have been a little bit different. The Bills come back to beat the Jags 27-24, and the Patriots hang on for a 16-3 victory against the Chargers, Marcus. Of all those games that we watched, and we certainly did watch them in Wild Card Weekend, which was the most intriguing game, and which one are you most surprised by the results?
Probably the Bears-Packers game, just because this is a very young Bears team with a first-year head coach. They got themselves into a massive hole. They were down 21-3. Very well could have been 24-3 if it wasn't for a McManus miss at halftime. I think the Bears showing the resilience that they've had all season, being able to fight back and win this game against, Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, who've had some big-time playoff performances in their past. I know that they're banged up, and I know that kind of factored into it in the second half. I'm so pleasantly surprised by this Bears team. And I know they're playing the Rams this weekend, and I know they're underdogs. I just don't think we can rule them out at all, because every single time we doubt them, they find weird ways to win.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, they've got a first-year head coach in Ben Johnson. They found a way to win a division that somehow didn't even include the Lions and the Vikings in the playoffs this year, who were so good just a season ago. I think that everything that they've done they've gone above and beyond, exceed our expectations. They've won their first wild card game with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, that HC quarterback pairing there. And as bad as things went in that game, Marcus, they found a way to rally back and score points fast at the end of the game. I agree. That was one of the most intriguing matchups. I was pleasantly surprised by the Panthers-Rams game. I mean, that one was, if you were to tell me, other than maybe my Steelers against the Houston Texans, which I expected to be closer, honestly, I just thought it would be a really kind of boring type of game that included a lot of defense and hardly any offense, which is mostly what we saw, a couple defensive scores. But the Panthers were able to hang tight against the Rams and put up over 30 points in a game that could have swung the other way. And I think that was maybe the most interesting game overall that I thought would be the least interesting.
Real quick on Carolina, they have to make a decision on the fifth-year option on Bryce Young, and I think he's made some big strides forward this year. Does the playoff performance against the Rams, where he was really lights out the second half of that game, does that change anything for you?
I mean, that is such a difficult question, because we've seen two polar opposite versions of Bryce Young just this season. And we're talking about a quarterback who was benched for a little while in year two, but I thought Young did some awesome things this year. I thought he did some terrible things. He had 400-yard games. He had 50-some yard games, and you just can't have that type of discrepancy. Now, if you are a believer that you can get those 300, 400-yard performances to show up more often, if you can get him to play like he did in the wild card round, and you can get that more consistently, I think you definitely pick up that option and you see where this goes. My issue, Marcus, with Young from the beginning is, despite being a former number one overall pick, I just am not in love with the traits and tools package for a sub 6 foot quarterback, 190 pound soaking wet, who kind of has average arm talent and tools. And so I wouldn't put all my eggs into that basket there, but I would probably give him the benefit of the doubt based on what we've seen. How
Well,
would you go with that?
I think I would, because I mean a lot of the mistakes in this game were just due to poor receiver play. I mean, Jalen Coker had a very up and down game. Xavier Legette was a disaster. And yet they had a chance to win this game. And Jimmy Horn drops a pass at
Mhm.
the end of the game. I think what you like about Young is that the progression has been steady and he's improved every year. His completion percentage has gone up every year. His passing yards have gone up. His passing touchdowns has gone up, and his passer rating has improved. So at least you're seeing a positive trajectory here. Compare and contrast that to CJ Stroud in Houston, who we'll talk about them in a second. He had 5 fumbles in this game, Tommy. 5 fumbles. And it's honestly, he's gotten progressively worse since his rookie season. And I wonder if things were flipped a little bit and it's Bryce Young having the big rookie season and then tailing off and it's Stroud really coming on, if we would change our opinions. Because I mean, again, you and I watched that game together. Does Houston beat Pittsburgh if Davis Mills is the quarterback? Absolutely. They might even win by, they might score 40 points in that game because CJ Stroud is so bad. So I'm I'm of the belief that you should give these guys some time. We've seen enough flashes from both of them. Do you feel great about them? No, I would want them to get the 5th-year option and I'll play it out before I give them a long-term deal. But I think you kind of have to.
Yeah, and who would have thought that would have been the case? I think this is what makes football so fun, so exciting, is the fact that we just see completely different players from year to year. And obviously, you'd like these guys to trend forward. You want to see the next superstar quarterbacks. Marcus, 2 years ago, after the 2023 season, we're talking about Jordan Love and CJ Stroud is like, these
Mhm.
guys are untouchable. Their teams would not trade them because they had such promising seasons. And now just to see kind of the downward spiral that these two quarterbacks have had. And I think that Love did some really good things, finished second in the NFL and EPA this year. But man, that postseason success, it's got to come. That'll kind of bring us into what we want to talk about next here with Houston is, can their defense carry them to a Super Bowl, Marcus? Because obviously it looks like it's not going to be the offensive side of the ball that's getting the job done. You mentioned it. I mean, they absolutely win that game with Davis Mills. Stroud has got to cut back down on the mental mistakes. I know that the pass protection hasn't been everything that Houston has wanted to be over the past 2 seasons. But what do you do if you're the Texans and you're trying to go from here? Can the defense be enough for this team? And they were brilliant against the Steelers. You talked about the scoop and score touchdown, the pick six there that they had, and just everything that they were able to do. I mean, again, Steelers don't have the most daunting offense, but holding any team to 6 points in a playoff game is always impressive. Pittsburgh barely was able to cross midfield in this game, never put the ball in the end zone. Is the defense enough, though, Marcus, as we look ahead now, that the Texans will be on the road to the New England Patriots in the divisional round of the playoffs?
Well, let's start with this. If you take the 8 teams that are left in the postseason and you rank the units, right? Like offensive, defensive unit, that's 16 units. Is there a unit left in the postseason that is better than Houston's defense? I would say no, there's not. I mean, this is a dominating defense. And we've already seen them, Tommy, play some of the top teams in the AFC. They gave up 19 points to the Bills. They beat them with Davis Mills. They gave up 18 points to the Broncos early in the year, and 7 of those came on a pick 6 from Davis Mills. They gave up 10 points to the Chiefs. They shut down the 49ers offense. They shut down the Ravens offense. They only gave up 10 points. I do think they can dominate because they're playing New England this week. We'll see about Nico Collins and his status. But if they score 17 points on offense, I think that might be enough for them to win that game. And they're obviously not going to be afraid of either the Broncos or the Bills, in the championship game. And if it's the Bills, it would be in Houston. I I think I think Houston's defense is that dominant where they can win, kind of like the 2000 Ravens, where they're just going to win the game on defense alone. All the offense has to do is stay out of the way for them to be competitive.
Yeah, and I mean, the Patriots have a better defense than the Steelers, but I think if you're a Texans fan, what's most encouraging right now is there's only room for CJ Stroud to go up from here. I mean, you're not going
He's
to have as
awful.
bad of a performance as you did against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card round. The defense should be dominant again, expectingly. I mean, obviously, this is a much bigger task. You're talking about a Patriots team that was plus 170 in point differential. You're going against Drake Maye, who is going to finish top two as a top 2 MVP candidate this season.
But Tommy, we saw Drake Maye really struggle in the first half against the Chargers defense. It doesn't have anywhere near the pass rush that Houston has, and they've got the corners that they can match up one-on-one with these outside receivers. Drake Maye is going to have to throw into really tight windows, with a lot of pressure around him. He just hasn't had to do that all season long. I would not be surprised at all if Houston holds New England under 17 points, and that's how they steal a game like this.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. They have the best edge rusher pairing in the league, I think, bar none right now. The Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, those two combined for 176 pressures this season and 27 sacks. And it showed. It showed up against Pittsburgh. Both of those guys had an awesome performance. I would expect them to do the same in the divisional round. You are tuned into Stacking the Box, where NFL fans come to talk, celebrate, debate. For more coverage, hit up FanSided.com, powered by the passionate fans at FanSided. All right, Marcus, let's talk about who's more likely to win the Super Bowl here. Is it Drake Maye or Caleb Williams? Obviously, these two guys came together into the 2024 draft as first-round picks. They showed glimpses of what they could be as rookies, and now they're already making tremendous strides, each of them with a playoff win under their belt already. Drake Maye, like we said, going to finish as one of the top MVP candidates. Caleb Williams, all the tools in the world. I mean, I still think the biggest knock on Caleb, Marcus, is a little bit sporadic, has a lot of off-target throws still. If he can clean that up, there's so much to work with there. Which situation do you like better? Who do you believe in more? And who's more likely to lead their team to a Super Bowl this year?
First of all, this 2024 draft with quarterbacks is wild because
Crazy.
You already had Jaden Daniels reach the NFC Championship game last year playing against Philadelphia. And then there's a chance this year, if the favorites win in the AFC, it's Drake Maye, who was the 3rd overall pick, against Bo Nix, who was the 12th overall pick in that draft. And on the other side of the bracket, Caleb Williams, they're underdogs against the Rams, but I don't think any of us would be surprised if they win that game. It's going to be one of the all-time great quarterback classes, assuming these guys can stay relatively healthy. But to answer your question, I think it's Drake Maye, just because I think the AFC side of the bracket is just easier. I mean, I love what this Bears team is doing, but I think they're a distant 4th of the 4 teams remaining between the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Rams. I think they cannot get off to a slow start against the Rams this week and think they're going to be able to come back and win. I'll take Drake Maye, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it's absolutely Maye. I mean, I think, and again, Marcus, you look at it this way too. Not only is the AFC easier, they are potentially 1 week away from hosting the AFC Championship game. If the Bills find a way to upset the Broncos, I would expect the Broncos to win that game. But even worst case scenario, you beat the Texans this week and you play in Denver for the AFC Championship. That's a game where maybe the Patriots should be favored. I mean, they certainly have the better quarterback situation. They are 15-3 counting the playoff game as it stands right now. They finished 3rd in point differential. They finished as a top 8 team in DVOA. I just think that Maye in himself, he's without, next to Josh Allen, there's no more threatening single player maybe in all of the playoff race right now in the NFL. And so I love what he's doing over there. Now,
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I think Drake Maye is either going to finish 1st or 2nd in MVP voting this year. He's had an awesome year. Now, we can debate about the schedule being really soft for New England. He's played unbelievably well. If you had to pick one of these two going forward between Caleb, and actually let's put 3 of them, Jaden Daniels, Caleb, and Drake Maye, who are you taking?
I was going to ask you the exact same question. I had that queued up and ready to go. I would take Drake Maye of the 3 because this year was so strong. And I love what Caleb Williams did as well. I still have my questions, like I said, about the accuracy. Can he clean that up? I think that is one area where you can improve. Love Caleb's escapability, love his play extension ability, his creativity with the football. So good in that regard. But I think considering what the Patriots had to work with, and it wasn't a lot. I mean, you had an aging Stephon Diggs and a pretty otherwise what we would have considered at least last year to be a very unspectacular receiving corps. Uh, for what he was able to do in New England, he's prototype size and traits. Maybe already, Marcus, dare I say, maybe already a better version of Justin Herbert, at least comparable. I mean, he's finding the playoff success. Herbert is amazing, by the way, and I don't think that we talk about that game, but I don't think that that was all his fault. Deserves some blame for sure. But you don't find 6'4 plus, 230 plus quarterbacks with elite traits and downfield ability every day like you do in Drake Maye. And give Jaden Daniels his credit too. Offensive Rookie of the Year, was amazing in 2024. This year, when he did play and when he was healthy, which was not a very big sample, I thought he took a little bit of a step back. And I have my questions, Marcus, about Jaden maybe being a bit of a one-read quarterback coming from that Cliff Kingsbury offense. Is there more to his game than that? I want to see a bigger sample from Jaden. So I would rank them, and maybe my recency bias kicking in a little bit here, but I did love these guys very similarly coming out, Marcus. I would say Drake Maye first, Caleb second, and Jaden third. What say you on those quarterbacks?
I think Daniels is probably third for me just because of the injury stuff. I mean, I think we all think he's really talented, but I struggle between May and Caleb because I do think Caleb's escapability and playmaking is so hard to find. And I mean, some of the throws he makes are absolutely ridiculous. And he's really turned things on. Like since week 9, he's got 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions during that stretch. He's got the highest big time throw rate in the NFL over the second half of the season. There's something about the way that he moves and can play make that's just so rare. And we've seen guys like, Justin Herbert and, and Drake Maye and the bigger guys that are more the pocket passers make an absolutely move. There's just something different about Caleb that I kind of gravitate towards. But I think the thing is, if you have either of these guys, you're freaking stoked, like moving forward. Like if you're a Chicago Bears fan, you're not trading Caleb for anything. And if you're a Patriots fan, you're not trading Drake Maye for another quarterback in the league. So we're picking nits here. And it really says more about your personal style and preference than who's actually the better quarterback here.
Yeah, no question. There's not a big enough trade package you could offer for either one of those guys who are in their early 20s still. So promising, the future of the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots. And like you say, I mean, it's not hard to understand why there were the Patrick Mahomes comps for Caleb coming out of USC, Marcus, because of how creative he is with the football. And so those guys are going to be in these postseason races for a long time to come here. From the highs, the heartbreaks, every headline, this is Stacking the Box, your source of NFL talk, powered by FanSided.com and the voices at FanSided. All right, Marcus, let's move on and talk about Sam Darnold here for a minute, a player who has been just phenomenal over the last 3 or 4 seasons, guy that doesn't get enough credit, amazing win percentage, 2 years, Marcus, of leading 2 different teams to a 14-3 record, but searching for that playoff success now is something that, I mean, he's never had. Do you believe in Sam Darnold? Are the Seahawks good enough where they are going to just run away and take care of business in round 2 here after getting that first round bye against the 49ers and one of the most daunting coaches in the league in Kyle Shanahan, who just knows what to do in basically every situation, even when a third of his roster is missing?
I do trust Sam Darnold, and I really trust him because of the team. I think the Seahawks have done a really good job of maximizing his strengths and minimizing his weaknesses. They're not going to ask him to throw the ball 40 times a game. They're not going to ask him to make a super complex reads. It's going to be a lot of middle of the field throws to JSN. It's going to be some screens. They're going to run the ball. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to score 30 points. I mean, we saw this matchup 2 weeks ago, and the Seahawks could have won that game with 10 points. Like, I think Darnold is starting to play within himself a little bit better. They don't need him to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or even Drake Maye to win these games. And I do think that's going to take some of the pressure off Darnold. And I do think he's exercised some of those demons this year. Like, he's played well in a lot of big games for the Seahawks. I think this is the most complete team left in the postseason. And I'm going to take him to beat the 49ers this week.
Yeah, Marcus, Darnold is the type of quarterback that if you were to get down 13, 14 points in a game, I would worry about his decision-making a little bit when he tries to come back. There's still error throws. I mean, he still struggles.
Although
with
we saw this a
intercepted
couple
passes.
weeks ago against the Rams. They got down
Absolutely.
way down in that game, and they came back. Now, some of that was on special teams, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's warranted because that's kind of what we've seen from him his whole career. Now, he does some things really well, and I think that he's running terrific offense over the last few years. Here's the good news. The Seahawks don't get in those situations. They're too good of a football team with an awesome defense, the number one DVOA defense in the NFL. I agree. I believe in Darnold. I think that he's going to take care of business as much as I like Shanahan as a coach, and he still might be for pound the best coach in the NFL with what he has to work with year in and year out and in the adversity he's faced with all the injuries on the 49ers. I love Darnold. I love him, especially in this setting with Clint Kubiak for however long he's here, and maybe it won't be much longer. But I think that the Seahawks are my number one favorite team to still make that run all the way. They've got home field advantage these next two games to get to the Super Bowl. If they can take care of business on their end, they're the most complete roster in the league with maybe the best coaching staff collectively.
Real quick, we just got done talking about the 2024 draft when it comes to quarterbacks. That 2018 draft is really good as well with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. It's 3 MVPs combined with those two guys. And then it's Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, who are the number 1 and number 3 picks. Quickly on that one, knowing everything you know now, would you rather have Darnold or Mayfield going forward?
Darnold. I would take Darnold, and I wouldn't have said that the first several or the last few seasons before this. I think that even this year, Marcus, like with Mayfield, first 6 weeks or so, we talked about him as maybe being an MVP frontrunner. That really tailored off fast. Darnold, though, however, has had 31 wins over the last several seasons, and I mean his record is phenomenal. He's done everything that you want him to do. I mean, his season last year with the Vikings, Marcus, 35 touchdowns and 4,300 yards. I mean, that's comparable to any season Ben Roethlisberger ever had with the Pittsburgh Steelers, to show you how good just statistically he was. Yards per attempt, passer rating, everything he did these past few years has led me to say that I would take Darnold pretty easily of that group. And man, you talk about that 2018 class, that turned out to be excellent. We didn't know where it was heading at first. But I mean,
real quick, I want to ask you this.
Quarterback class.
You rank the quarterback classes. 2018, which we mentioned, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. You've got the 2024 class with Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix. We'll see about Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels. The other one I wanted to throw in, there's a 2020 class that has Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, and Tua. What is the best quarterback class of those three?
That's really good too. And again, my recency bias might kick in a little bit here, but I would go 2018, 2024, and then 2020, just because I have so much hope for the 2024 class of these guys being future MVPs and potential Super Bowl winners.
It's just hard when you've got Burrow, Herbert, Jordan Love, and Jalen Hurts. I mean, that's probably 4 of the top.
And based on sample, Marcus, obviously you would take 2020 over 2024. But I'm projecting towards the future. I think that 2024 can be even better than that because of those 3 quarterbacks there with Drake Maye, Caleb, and Jaden Daniels. We will see. But 18, I mean, it's hard to argue against Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. You get a couple MVPs in there. That's all she wrote. Marcus, let's look ahead. One more thing here for today's show. Let's look at these divisional matchups here. One of my favorite weeks of the entire year is watching divisional round football. Usually you get those bad games, if any, out of the way, like the Steelers Texans game in the wild card round, and you are looking towards some really good football this weekend. 4 games on the slate, 2 in the AFC, 2 in the NFC. We got Broncos hosting the Bills. We got Patriots hosting the Texans. And on the NFC side, we've got the Seahawks hosting 49ers and the Bears hosting the Rams. Do you want to give a quick prediction for these games, Marcus, before we sign off? And then who do you think, what do you think is going to be the most entertaining game overall?
I think the most entertaining is going to be this Bills Broncos game because the Bills are so banged up. They only have 3 receivers healthy on their entire team right now. It's Khalil Shakir, who's their slot, Keon Coleman, who was a healthy scratch for multiple games this year. And then it's Brandon Cooks, who they signed late in the year. They lost Tyrell Shavers to a torn ACL. They lost Gabe Davis to a torn ACL. They moved on from Elijah Moore. They're playing on a short week. Denver's had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. And yet it's really hard to bet against Josh Allen because he is so good in these big matchups. That's the game that I'm the most excited to see. I think that the Seahawks and the Rams take care of business, and that's what we get in the NFC. And on the AFC, I think it's going to be Denver and Houston, and that is going to be an all-out war. First to 15 points probably wins.
You're taking the Rams over the Bears, and you just talked up the Bears like they're this team.
I do. I mean, I have a hard time picking them against this Rams team, but would it shock you, Tommy, at all if they had another one of these wild games and figure out a way to win?
Not at all. And what I would say, Marcus, for sure, especially with the struggles we saw recently with the Rams defense, not just last week, but towards the end of the season too, the game against the Falcons, I think the Bears are going to have a much harder start on offense for sure. It's can that defense that relies so heavily on takeaways, can they get the job done? I think I agree with you for the most part here. Seahawks over 49ers. I am a believer in the Seahawks this year. I have been for quite a while. Halfway through the season, I had them as my number 1 team and never looked back. I will take the Rams over the Bears as well, just because I believe so much in McVay, in Stafford, in that passing offense. Let's go Broncos over Bills and Patriots over Texans. So those would be the 4 that I would take this week. And in terms of the most exciting game, I'm going to go Bears Rams. I think that one has the potential to be a back and forth shootout, maybe similar to the Rams we saw, a 34-31 type of game.
Which means it'll probably be like a 10-7 game.
Yeah, you watch it. You watch it disappoint.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you wanted to get to, Marcus? Any other notes we want to get to?
You're right. The divisional round is one of the best times of the year. And I honestly think we got the top 8 teams in the league for this divisional round. I think with the Eagles being out, with the Chiefs being out, we're going to get a brand new Super Bowl. We're going to get a new NFL champion. I'm really excited about the next 3 weeks.
Absolutely. And I would love to see a Seahawks Rams matchup next week. I think that would be really fun. In the NFC and the AFC, I mean, I would
get another Bills
Patriots just to see those 2 quarterbacks. But
yeah, those 2 games were awesome this year. Can we get it again? That would be so much fun.
Absolutely. All right. This is the Stacking the Box show. And typically we premiere every Tuesday evening on YouTube. Be sure to check it out. You can follow Marcus's work on X at Marcus_Mosier. You can follow my work on X at Tommy Jagai. You can download the Stacking the Box podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also check us out on YouTube. You can follow my written work on stillcurtain.com, part of the FanSided NFL Network. Follow Marcus's written work on the FanSided NFL Network and all of its accompanying websites. Be sure to check out fansided.com for all your daily sports news and opinions. And thanks again for listening to the Stacking the Box podcast.